All right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Pokemon Masterclass. This is the special edition of the Pokemon Masterclass, which we like to call the Pokemon Roundtable. And this month, it's a little bit downsized. People are busy this month. We got a lot going on, but nonetheless, we're going to have a wonderful roundtable for all of you guys. So please help me in welcoming, as always, Mason from Cardinal Gaming and Jake from Pokenomics. How's it going, guys?
Hello, what's up, guys? I'm good. Jake, how you doing?
Sorry about that. I was having an audio issue. I'm doing good. Nice to be here with you guys, and nice to be here with the chat watching.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's good to see you guys again. Your smiling faces. As you guys can see, like I said, we are a little bit downsized. We're at the kitty table this month. Z, aka James, I think he was busy moving at the end of this month up to Flagstaff, so he couldn't make it. And Radar, he might be jumping in here in a little bit, so if he does, we'll make sure to add him in. But it's kind of good news for you guys out there watching or listening. With only the three of us here tonight, we'll probably have more time to answer questions from the chat. So if you guys have any questions for any of us, you guys be sure throw them in the chat there at the end, and then we'll be sure to jump in and answer those questions as well, or at least we'll give it an attempt, right, guys?
Oh yeah, we'll have an answer with one. We'll definitely have answers.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. Mason, I think we'll have you start us off this month if you're okay with that.
Me? I gotta start?
Yeah, we're putting the pressure on you, man. You're the newest guy, so we gotta pick on you.
No, that's fair. Okay. I was gonna ask you guys what you thought the biggest and probably most stonky, let's say stonky as a adjective, of the celebration set of all the products. What do you guys think is going to be the big hold on that kind of set? Jake, are you familiar with the products? Have you looked at them all?
I'm not familiar enough to have a.
Okay.
I know the cards that are roughly in this set, but you can give me a quick rundown of the products too, and maybe the viewers, and then I can pick one. Can do it that way.
Yeah, I can do that. Give me a second to pull them up, and I'll run down from my distributor of.
Yeah, and I can help you out too, Mason. We've got, some of the standard things that you would expect. Now, what's interesting about Celebrations, unlike other subsets that we've had in the past, is there's no ETB. So really, you're getting collection boxes. We've also got an ultra premium collection box, which I think is pretty cool. That's where we're going to get the metal. I still don't know what that entails, but a metal reprint of base set Pikachu, base set Charizard, a bunch of packs in there. We also are going to get one of the collector's chests that'll be in here as well. What's cool about Celebrations, what I do like about it, is that it seems like each product is going to have one unique or a few unique type of cards in there. And with them bringing back a lot of the old mechanics, it's like every product, they almost made it so in order to get all of those different mechanics or maybe those promos with that particular mechanic for that Pokemon, you have to go and you have to purchase the different products in order to do so. But while you're looking that up, Mason, I'll go ahead and answer your question. For me, I actually made a video on this here a while back, kind of discussing the three big characters in Pokemon, right? The collectors, the investors, and just the hobbyist. And I think for a collection piece, probably the best collection piece, in my opinion, is not one of the English products, but that golden box that we're getting in Japan, which is essentially the Japanese version of the ultra premium collection box. Basically everything that's going to be in that golden box is going to be in the ultra premium collection box. So I think from a collecting standpoint, that's really cool. I mean, everything in there is gold. The sleeves, the deck box, the cards themselves, all gold. The box on the outside, all gold. And then for the investors, it's basically just the reverse, in my opinion. I think the Ultra Premium Collection box is probably the most investable piece from Celebrations. And the reason being is that you get the most bang for the buck because you're getting the most packs. And with Celebrations only having those 4-card booster packs, I think in there you're getting 10, and then you're getting, I believe, 5 additional packs. So you're kind of you're getting a lot in there, and then on top of that, you have that reprinted base set Pikachu, base set Charizard, and in Japan, we also had the confirmation that the Japanese set, or I believe the subset, is going to have that full art reprint of base set Pikachu, which is also illustrated this time around by Mitsuhiro Arita, which I thought was really cool. The fact that he illustrated this full art card in the same manner that he illustrated the original base set Pikachu. So I'm wondering to myself, I'm thinking, okay, we've got the confirmation of a full art base set Pikachu. Is there the possibility that we already know we're going to get base set Pikachu, base set Charizard in Ultra Premium Collection, that we'll get a full art Charizard, full art base set reprint Charizard in that collection? If that's the case, then I really think that that could be probably the product that I would recommend holding from this particular set.
That would be crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, that's going to be so popular if they make a full art base set Charizard, just like they're doing that really cool full art base set Pikachu. So I think honestly, like, I'm just excited as a collector about this stuff. I think I'm just looking forward to hopefully getting some and like having fun opening it and exploring it. I haven't given, like, you guys know my general feelings. The chat probably knows my general feelings on like investing in Modern and the risks of investing in such a new product where we don't really know supply, all these sorts of things. I think Nav is right on the Japanese side. I mean, even if it doesn't make sense to me, if we look at history right now, I mean, you can see how valuable the CP6 box is. Mm-hmm. If this is made in any sort of similar quantity and has any sort of similar popularity, it doesn't have to go to $2,000 or $2,500 for it to still go up a lot from where you're going to be able to buy it initially. So that leaves you a lot of room. I think it's going to be a really popular set. I think it's going to be, now it also could be, if it's like somehow isn't good, it could be a big bust because people have really high expectations, which would kind of stink. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'll be great, and it'll be something we can all be excited about and hopefully like really enjoy and bring some positivity into the hobby. So that's my hope.
Jake, do you have like a favorite promo? Have you looked at the promos yet?
Yeah, I've seen all of
favorite.
I think I've seen everything that's been like out basically so far.
Like the Dark Sylveon, there's Lance's Charizard, those kind of promos. Yeah. Do you have a favorite of those?
Well, I don't know if the ones in my head are promos, but I guess they're not promos. But I think the cards that I was most looking forward to were the base set Pikachu full art and the full art versions of the like flying and surfing Pikachu cards. I thought those are really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of the promos, maybe I haven't seen them all yet. I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, I can throw them at you. Okay.
Throw them in the.
Yeah, I can't throw them in the chat. No, I can't. But there's a collector's chest, which is basically like the big lunchbox. Normally that has like stickers and maybe some promos in there. I don't know what the promos are, but then they have we forgot about this one, the Pikachu VMAX collection, which is like the big statue of the Pikachu VMAX.
Yeah.
If you guys remember from Hidden Fates, we have the Shiny Rayquaza, kind of same size statue thing that was very popular and is now very expensive. That's what I'm going to choose as being kind of the big hitter out of the set. Even though the Ultra Premium Collection is obviously going to be huge, it's got a big lead, being $120 at an MSRP that is pretty high. But I think percentage growth wise, the figure collections are super heavy. The figures are hard to make. They're hard to ship. They take weird box dimensions. I don't see them just producing a lot of them comparative to like any of the other products. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking that Pikachu VMAX figure could be pretty pricey down the road. And it does have the alternate of the Pikachu VMAX that we didn't get, the one where he has his arms cheering instead of just standing there awkwardly. It's kind of a cuter promo. It's very subtle, but it's a good looking card. So yeah, I like that. At $50, it's a lot more accessible. It's a lot more, a lot of people can pick it up and not be breaking the bank at $120 to, if they do want to buy something cool or for like a gift or something. I feel like those boxes are going to be busted way more, whereas Ultra Premium Collection is pretty much guaranteed as a collectible item. So that's what I'm picking as like the standout product.
Has anything like had that high of an MSRP for that type of product? I'm thinking like Dragon Majesty was like 75. That was one of the highest ones I can remember. For premium collection, that seems really high, Mason.
Yeah, Ultra Premium Collections. There was one other one with.
I remember there was Shining Legends as well. In fact, I've got quite a few.
Yeah,
of those.
that
was expensive.
With the figure in it. It was a littler figure, but it's still cool. I think that one was maybe 100-ish.
Wow.
Maybe less than that. But yeah, Ultra Premiums are definitely extremely pricey.
Yeah, cool.
The other standout product that we could see potentially is the Pikachu V Union box. What's really cool about that is you've got the new mechanic coming out, V Union, and that particular card, or I should say cards rather, because it's 4 that combine into one, is that there's 25 different illustrations from 25 different illustrators of Pikachu on that card. So it's like all these different Pikachus and illustrations that have existed over the course of the TCG's history, all on those 4 cards that combine into one. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. That art is just amazing and cute, and it's kind of funny where we think of V Union as creating 4 things to create a single Pokemon, where they just said, "I'll forget it. Let's just put them all in there." It's kind of a cute little thing. So aesthetically, it's going to be a very beautiful box to put up on a shelf if you do want to collect it. So yeah, I can see that doing very well too.
What's really cool also, the thing that I liked was seeing that Lance's Charizard, because to me that was very reminiscent of the Versus series from Japan that we never got in English. And I believe that was one of the only times that we saw Elite Four Pokemon in the TCG. I think was from the Versus series with Lance and I think it was Karen, Agatha, Bruno, all of them. Just very reminiscent of that. And it's so cool to me how they're bringing back a lot of these old mechanics. Delta Species, that one took me by complete surprise. When I thought they were going to bring back old mechanics, I thought they were talking about maybe EX type of cards, something like that. But going all the way back to Light, Dark Pokemon, Delta Species, I thought that was a Gold Star. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I was going to say that the Elite Trainer box, it does have an Elite Trainer box. That's where the Greninja Gold Star is. So it does have an ETB as well.
Oh, that's right. Yes, you're absolutely right. We're going to get the regular ETB, and then there's an expectation of the Pokemon Center ETB as well.
Yeah.
What about you, Mason? You're thinking your guess is on the figure collection, correct?
Yeah, if I had to choose one that would go up, the highest percentage-wise from where it starts, yeah, I like that. Again, on secondary markets, expensive to ship, so you got to be shipping this big thing around. Of course, the Rayquaza figure had its head pop off, and on some occasions, so there's that kind of weird thing with that. Hopefully, Pikachu stays together pretty well. So, but yeah, that's what I would be thinking. It has all that kind of stuff that shows that it's going to be doing well. So that's what I like. Yep, that's what I'm picking.
Cool. Well, Jake, what are you thinking now that we've kind of ran through the products? Which one would you say? Just not too familiar yet.
I don't know enough to say. I mean, I think that if we look at the history of how these sets have done, it's the Japanese every single time. So, without knowing the specifics of the products too well, and without seeing like one is, but a lot of it's gonna have to do with the supply the initial supply, and then how much is opened, how much is stored away. And that's going to be a big problem with these newer Japanese, with anything newer now. People are keeping it sealed way more than they kept CP6 and PokeKayon. So I just wouldn't expect the same types of likely returns. There's going to be a lot more of that kept sealed than those products were, because the potential gains are so much more now, and there are just so many more average people investing or holding this sort of product. So where that ends up, I'm not sure, but you still, I mean, it's a crazy margin how high things like PokeKayon and CP6 are compared to what they were when you could have bought them originally. So there's a lot of room there, even if it doesn't do as good or moves up as fast. So that would probably be the safest, just based on past history. But yeah, I like the idea of, I mean, I think if you're looking at, it depends on your business model. If you're looking at how much product you can get. Do you want to buy the cheaper product, try to get the bigger margins on it, but you're going to have to sell more to make the same amount of money? Even if you're getting smaller margins on the 125 product, you're still going to make more money based on a percentage basis. So trying to figure out, be interesting to see, Mason, which one you make more money on, as a business, and in the long run, not just understanding which one went up the highest percentage, but which one, the churn rate, which one sells the quickest, how quickly you can move those sorts of things, what people are looking at. So yeah, it's a whole complicated world that you guys know a lot more about than me, in terms of just and I know now, particularly now, as you're getting more involved with your friend, I'm sure you're going to be picking up more and more, you're going to get more and more experience on the intricacies of kind of what Mason does. Oh yeah. And what sells and what doesn't sell.
For sure. No, that's a good one, Mason.
How much things go up, it's also how easy they are to sell and how quick they are to flip. So there's a lot to consider.
Yeah, it's all about what's more absorbable by the market, right? Which not necessarily which one is always the best, but which one actually moves, which one is absorbable, which one are people willing to actually go out and buy, and especially from a return standpoint, from that initial purchase price, that cost basis compared to what it might be in 1 to 2 years, it could be that figure collection versus the ultra premium, just based upon where it will be and how many people are going to be buying it in a couple years.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the allocations end up looking like. Yeah. If there's a lot of unique products in there, a lot of unique box sizes. It's going to be unique stuff that they have to custom make, where they don't have the dimensions of, maybe potentially. So we'll see how that goes. Of course, we can't even put numbers in for them, because most places will allocate them to us.
Yes.
Based on previous sales. So I don't know. We'll see how much we can get, if the Marnie tournament collections were anything to go off of. It is definitely probably not going to be enough to meet demand, but we'll have to wait and see.
The other thing, I guess, to think about for the audience is that, a set like Evolution's part of the reason it took so long to move up. I mean, a huge part of it was because of the boom, obviously, this year, and that triggered a lot of sets all at once. But a set like this, similarly to Evolution's, could be so popular that they might print, this could be the second, they could print more of this than even Evolution's, and it could be the most printed set ever. So that doesn't mean that in the long run it won't get all eaten up, and the popularity the demand won't be enough to eventually eat all of that up. The prices do go up, but it could take longer. The trajectory and the movement of a product like this might be a little bit different, because there might just be so much supply on the market. So that's the type of stuff you're just gonna, if you're interested in investing in this sort of stuff, you're just gonna have to be super kind of following the market, seeing how it goes. There'll probably be waves, right? On the English.
For sure. Yeah. Everything's in waves these days.
Yeah. So if you're a reseller, also timing those waves and, all that sort of stuff. So.
What are you, obviously we haven't seen anything yet, but with Evolving Skies, Mason, what we're kind of seeing is a fairly, well, not too bad of an allocation in the first wave, and then a little bit less each wave thereafter. Is that kind of what you're seeing as well?
Yes. For my main guys, I got a vast majority of the booster boxes. I did get cut pretty heavy, probably about half of what I asked for the ETBs, but those were going to be super popular. There's a box with EVs on it. Of course, it's going to be very ordered by even stores that don't go heavy in Pokemon. So, yeah, it's that product is going to be probably fairly limited. But booster box wise, I got all I asked for. It is going to be in waves, but that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Can't ask for too much more than that. So,
yeah,
it's a cool set, I think. Roaring Skies, or sorry, not Roaring Skies. What's it called?
Evolving Skies.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely Cosmic Eclipse was kind of like the best standard set of all time. I think this one takes Cosmic Eclipse and kind of does a backflip over it as far as what a slam dunk it's going to be.
Yeah, and just the little precursors that we've been getting, I mean, obviously with Eevee Heroes, which we know is going to be in there, but then also Blue Sky Stream and Towering Perfection. It's just, man, just keep outdoing themselves, it seems like, each and every time. Because I really thought that Chilling Reign was an excellent set.
Yeah.
And then obviously prior to that, we had the combination of a little bit of Matchless Fighter and then Silver Lance and Jet Black Spirit, which, you know, I got to open up those beforehand, and it got me really excited about Chilling Reign, and they I think they outdid themselves once again with Evolving Skies.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, good deal. All right, so I guess I'll go ahead and go next. My question for you guys is, so just kind of seeing what has happened and what has transpired over these last few months and really what has gone on over this last year and a half, and the big fluctuations that people are seeing now and how many people are being forced to pivot. They're being forced to pivot their previous strategies that they had kind of honed in on over 2020, and the expectations that they had over 2020 are quickly coming to a halt. And Mason, you've been in this for a while. Jake, so have you. Myself. My question to you guys is, over this period of time that you guys have been doing this, collecting, investing, business, all of these different things, what are some of the strategies that you've utilized over these years? What are some of the things that you've done to be able to pivot in an ever-changing market? Because we all know TCGs, the whole umbrella, it's not just Pokemon. It's an ephemeral market, and it can be very fickle, and it can be very fleeting. So whichever route you guys want to take from an investing standpoint, business standpoint, or both, how have you guys been able to weather that over all these years, and some of the strategies that you've been able to employ to be successful over this course of time?
Jake, you want to go first on this, or you need a minute, or what?
I can go, Mason, if you want to think about it either way.
Yeah.
Well, I guess this year, you know, I was a net seller for sure in Pokemon by a pretty large margin. Well, I should say once around October is when I really started selling very, like, you know, when all the, basically 3 weeks into Logan Paul is when I started like selling a lot. Selling is anything that I didn't feel like was really rare, or anything that I didn't feel like it would be really difficult to get back. I was trying to sell. And I ended up selling about maybe like 30 to 40%. So for me, you know, it's selling into hype. So when you think there's a mania, when you think people are way overvaluing something, when you think the majority of the market doesn't really understand what they're buying and is too bullish and probably doesn't have, you know, you could be right or wrong, but I would suggest you sell in those types of environments. I think that for me, then I moved on to the things that I thought were undervalued. So I bought a lot of Harry Potter, and then before that went up, and then I bought a lot of Marvel before that went up, and then I bought a lot of, so I took all the money from Pokemon and I invested it right back into those other TCGs, and then I sold a bunch of those, and then I rebought some Pokemon recently, and I'm into like 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s vintage cards, and I'm trying to learn like everything about those sorts of things because people our age don't know about them, and you know, I can, you know, I'm at the point now where I feel like I have a like pretty good depth of knowledge over, you know, cards from that generation from a few specific companies that I'm looking at. And so I feel like, you know, I believe that cards in general and PSA grading and graded cards are still on the rise. There's so much interest in this space, and most of that interest has been on Pokemon, and most of that interest has been on Yu-Gi-Oh, and most of that interest has been, and so for me, my strategy is just I look where people don't look. I trust, I make valuations. I say, here's an undervalued item. It's undervalued for these 5 reasons. And then I buy it, and then when it's time to sell, that's when I buy. And then when I sell is when I feel like people are overvaluing the item. And it sounds like common sense, and it is, I think that is the nature of investing. The hard part is being right. So I think that I do some of that. And then while I'm doing that, I build a longer term investment items that I think are really good items that I think will, I have my own collection, but then I will build items that I think are really good investment pieces, or pieces that I actually think are going to go up over time. And even now, even though I think that they're not going to go up for a little bit now, and I think they might retrace even a little bit more, I think those are really strong items that are historic to the Pokemon hobby. I think, most items that have a decent amount of value in Pokemon, I don't think are that historic. And I know people don't love to hear that. I just don't think they're going to be very important in 10 to 20 years. So for me, I try to keep my money and as an investment in the 1% of the hobby, or even less than 1% of the cards in the hobby that I think are going to stand the test of time and be like historical pieces to this huge pop culture IP. So, and that's what I suggest other people do, from a purely investing perspective. And then from a collecting perspective, collect what you love and just don't spend yourself into debt, and use your investing and your buying and your selling and that sort of financial stuff to just fund that part of what you do, and I buy plenty of things just because I love them, and I'm not doing it for any sort of financial gain or for money. So that's a huge part of the hobby too. Does that satisfactorily answer your question? I'm not sure.
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, definitely. And really, like you said, it doesn't matter the TCG, right? A lot of these principles permeate, and it's not, I should expand that and say it's not even necessarily specific to collectibles. This is really just investing in general. You're buying in when you think that the market is undervalued, and then selling when you think that it's overvalued. It's just that, and having been in, especially the financial markets for years, you understand, like, people get that, but it also goes against human instinct to actually perform that, right? They understand it from a fundamental level, but then to actually act on it, it's very counterintuitive to their instincts, and that's where you usually see that 1%, of people start to really make large gains and just go leaps and bounds above others in the overall market, is because they stand the test of time. They follow those particular principles, and like you said, man, it's a lot easier said than done. And the people that do it are usually the ones that are successful. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's understanding where your edge is. And your edge might be, for example, right now, my edge in the vintage market is that these older people are not on social media. And so they're not able to tell young people about any of these things. So the only people in the world that know about the things that I'm buying right now and know how cool they are and could explain how cool they are to people aren't on social media. So it's just understanding those like little things, but you have to delve deep into what the Pokemon market did not happen by accident this year. There was a lot of influencers and market makers who came into the space and made this, a big thing. And a lot of other hobbies, they don't have that catalyst, but the actual items are excellent, are items that people would love to have if they knew about them and have some of those rarity fundamentals and all those sorts of things. So, I just think and then I want to preface all that with be extremely careful with cardboard, because it's very risky because these things depend on people wanting them and aren't food and water. So, so I think I combine all of that with the other part with what Nav talks about, which is certain items, I'm not looking to time the market. I'm just looking to buy items that I think are really good, and I'm holding them, and I feel confident in them in the long run that they'll go up, and they'll go up and down in the interim. And I'm not planning on selling them unless they go up like 10 times like they did this year. Like most of the items I sold this year, I was definitely not planning on selling. They just went up so much that it would have been really foolish financially not to sell them, and so that was the only reason. But generally, I'm actually quite a bit of that sort of value investor in that sense also, or more traditional value investor, where I like to buy items that I feel like I don't have to time. There isn't a timing element. The time is your friend, right? 5, 10, 15 years, the demographics are your friend. And the demographics are really good in Pokemon, right? We're a young hobby. There's going to be probably more money in the hobby in the future, as long as it isn't just a fad. And we're gonna see how all that plays out.
Yeah, no, really good, really good. Mason, what about you, brother? He's got that very stoic look on him. He's just got something deep to throw down.
I wanted to throw some follow-ups at Jake, but I don't want to. I love talking to Jake. We talked for hours the other night, and that's super good. Always talking to Jake. I always love his opinion because he has such a far vast opinion in most cases than me on a lot of things. But he just knows, vintage stuff so much better, and I know modern so much better. We're kind of a nice little yin and yang. Yeah, exactly. So we ask each other questions all the time. So. Heck, I want to do it. Okay. Jake, is there any modern stuff that you are actually in collecting to hold on to? You don't have to say what they are, but
as investment pieces.
Okay. I mean, yeah, if you want to call them that, or just you believe in.
I think the best modern piece, like the best modern cards, are the Mario Pikachu, like crossovers, and holding probably Japanese exclusive, like sealed product that from very popular sets. Like if I was just going to do two things, the two things would be, and that's why I bought a bunch of the screen promos and those sorts of things, because I just think that some of those things really stand out. And that's what I would do if I really liked modern. And one thing I'm really interested in is the Mario Pikachu going to outperform like some of the vintage PSA 10 first edition WotC Hollows in the long run? That I'm fascinated in. I would personally bet on the first edition WotC Hollows, but I'm definitely not like 100% confident in that. Like I can imagine scenarios where the Mario Pikachu actually continues to grow and become something like even bigger than the hobby, or there's this thing in the hobby where now that also feels vintage and it's Mario Luigi, like there are things there. So that's what I would go after for people. I think that anything that's super common and that just has like I would not be investing in like PSA graded, like anything from like English sets. I just don't think it's the best place for your money. I think even if you make money, I just don't think it's so risky with the amount of like, you just have no idea how many people are grading them. People are not going to be right. Everyone's going to, even the ones that don't get graded, they're going to be sitting in binders. So if the price ever does go up, it just provides that incentive to then grade them. It's just very different now because everyone thinks about these things as money, even collectors. Whereas before, we're talking about like the Diamond and Pearl era where cards, I invested very, very heavily in the Diamond and Pearl era because I just knew there was so little of it and I knew no one kept it in good condition and it didn't come in good condition out of the pack. We have the exact opposite situation now. Things are really good, generally speaking, out of the pack. Everyone's keeping it in pristine condition, and there's a lot more of it just being printed to begin with. So it's just all of that. You just need more demand for it to be successful. It's just a supply and demand thing at the end of the day. And I'm not saying you can't make money in that. And as I've said, that like hopefully this is actually like Pokemon is not that big right now, and in 10 to 15 years Pokemon's going to be much bigger than it is, and you're going to have like even more generations collecting, and this is going to be a little bit more like the like a bronze era in comic books rather than the versus like a junk wax era in sports, that it's really like it's not going to be as expensive and do as well, but it's still, they didn't print enough. But I have no idea, nobody does. So
what's the pop look like for the Mario and Luigi Pikachus versus like
Yeah.
base set first ed stuff? Is it
Well,
way exponential?
I mean, base set first edition has about 110,000 cards graded, roughly.
Okay.
Base set unlimited about 100,000 also. Then we go into like modern sets. You see like Hidden Fates and Evolutions already have like 63, 65,000, basically all from this year already.
Right. Yeah.
The Mario and Luigi Pikachu, I want to say it's like 400-ish in tens maybe. We're talking maybe 600. I don't know. I don't follow those cards because I don't invest in those cards. I don't really like those cards.
Okay.
And for me, you should invest in things you understand. But I also like won't ignore the success and what's happened with those and how other people seem to feel. So I'm talking on and on here, but
I'm asking you questions and I appreciate it. But
yeah. So that's what I would say. What would you say, Nav, like on that? Because it's an interesting question. Like in modern, like if you were to pick like a couple of things, do you feel like all of these things are investable in like any sealed product, or do you feel like it makes more sense to focus on like the best performers, or like what would you really advise someone as like an investment? Yes. Understanding that we all are just guessing here.
Yeah, exactly. What I look at when I look at modern, I made a video on it here a while back, caught a lot of flack for it too. I was basically saying similar things to like I think what both of you are giving an inclination towards. One being I have less of an inclination to believe in the long-term value of main set cards. So set cards from just mainline English sets. And that kind of lends to Jake's position where there is a lot of print, there's a lot of people holding these cards, a lot more people that are getting them graded, a lot more supply. So it begs the question, will the demand actually be able to eat up the supply later on down the road? And will we have something in 3 years where we've got the same population levels that took 5 years, or 3 or 5 years that took first edition base set 20 years to actually achieve? So I worry about that. For me, I think that something that I'm more interested in, and I think more people should be looking at, is just those tenants. In modern, you can't have all of these tenants, but older, rare, mint, or better. Well, you can look at rare, you can look at mint, or you can look at better in something like modern. And when I look at that, the demographic to me from Pokemon that fits those characteristics are exclusive type of products, those exclusive type of cards, and especially those that are coming out of Japan. Something like EV Heroes, where we've got the Espeon, or it's the Espeon VMAX that's in the EV Heroes box, I believe. But just just exclusive to that particular box. Now there is a possibility that we may get that in English. I don't think there's been any confirmation of that yet. But and then the Gengar and Inteleon box, 1 in 6 chance of pulling the exclusive promo from those types of boxes. It's already very difficult to get things from Japan. Japanese products are better quality typically right off of the print line. So you see, you're starting to check off some of those characteristics there. And as we move on down the road, you'll check off that character or that tenant of older as well, along with these other tenants that we look at for vintage products. So for me, kind of in a nutshell, when I look at modern, I'm looking at more exclusivity. I'm looking at those products that just aren't released in other parts of the world, and typically that's in Japan. Now, when we do get English types of releases, and I see something like for celebrations, and I see the ultra premium collection box, and I see something at a very high price point, a very high MSRP, well, how much of that is Pokemon really going to print in comparison to a collection box, or even to your point, Mason, a figure collection box? Just the logistics on that and the supply chain of being able to print that is going to be a lot more difficult than a collector's chest or just a regular collection box. And when I look at the cards that are in there, and I look at something like that, the base set Pikachu, the base set Charizard reprint, which are going to be, they're referred to as metal cards. I see that as unique, and I see that as unique in a product that probably isn't going to get printed to the ground like versus something like an Elite Trainer box. or a collection box. So the cards in there, I think, will probably have less value over time. Now, the juxtaposition to that, when I look at modern as well, a lot of people have said, well, if you think that the value of the individual cards of mainline sets are not going to have value, how do you think that sealed products are going to have any value? And when I look at sealed products, although there are more people holding those now, there's an adage that I heard before that I think reverberates here. It's everyone's a long-term investor until they experience a short-term crisis. And so I wonder how many people are going to have diamond hands versus paper hands over the long term. And when we look at the proliferation of social media and YouTube and pack openings and things like that, and I look at something like Battle Styles, which has dropped from its high of around $170 down to now around $100 or less, I look at that cost basis of that product, and I think to myself, in 3 years, when people are looking back much in the same manner that we look back 3 years ago, and we're looking at Cosmic Eclipse, sets like that, and Cosmic Eclipse never fell below that $100 threshold. Now, granted, you have to take into consideration a very different set, things like that. But when I look at a really low cost basis like that, for me, I'm more inclined to want to hold that particular sealed product for the long term because I'm purchasing it at such a low price point when compared to other modern products. So even if it goes back up to MSRP, in this case, it's all about quantity, right? It's not so much about the real strong value of any one particular item. I think in this case, you're purchasing in larger quantities with the expectation that you're purchasing at a low cost base. It's kind of like, this is sort of analogous to me in the financial world to mutual funds, right? You got these different mutual fund companies out there, Fidelity, BlackRock mutual funds, things like that. And what a lot of people focus on is their cost basis. What does it actually cost to get into that mutual fund? And one of the discount mutual fund companies out there is Vanguard. In fact, I started out my career with Vanguard, and one of their big selling points is their low barrier to entry. They're no load funds, they're low cost basis, and over time, that savings up front has shown time and time again to prove successful for them in providing returns on their algorithmic based index funds, right? More of a passive management type of strategy. And that's what I look at with modern. When I look at keeping products sealed, I look at more of like a passive management type of strategy. And I also kind of take that forward into the individual cards themselves, of looking at more exclusivity, because I think those will be the individual items that that stand the test of time, and then the sealed products, you really want to look at what you're purchasing, what is your initial cost basis. So yeah, in a very, very big scope there, very roundabout way, that is, I guess that's my answer.
No, yeah, I mean, it's all fundamental stuff that makes sense and applies. Yeah.
So in a nutshell, guys, I think you're both right. Like, I think you both have like strong positions here that I think really could go either way, right? And that's kind of when I'm formulating it in my head, I'm considering like both of those ideas. And I think that the Pokemon market, that there is like these different like these different areas, right? There's a lot of different investment opportunities and sort of like subsections of the market that exists where you can kind of take advantage in no matter what it is. Like the broad term is modern. Well, there's a lot of like subgenres under modern that I think have opportunities, and some that I think are probably pitfalls.
I think my concern about like just buying any modern sealed booster box and then holding it is that I think that a lot of people who are buying them right now are irrationally exuberant about them and don't understand the risks. And I even think businesses, I think that like it's sort of like everyone, it seems like almost everyone in Pokemon doesn't understand the risks. And if you ask someone from the sports world or someone from the comic book world about the risk, they'd be like, no, you can get stuck with tons of boxes and they can be worth $10 or $5 each. But somehow in Pokemon, we feel like everyone wants this stuff so much and will always want it so much that there's this like inability to even like consider that possibility. And that worries me, that it's not like more of like there's good upside, and likely we think that it's going to go up and that these things are going to continue. But when we have never been in a period like this in Pokemon. So looking back in history doesn't really help us predict what's going to happen right now or what's going to happen next. And what I mean by that is that, you know, most people, when I say that, they say, well, booster boxes have never gone down. And then I say, well, that's not true, but it doesn't really matter because they've never really gone down significantly. Like you have your obvious reprints and you have your, you know, Roaring Skies going up to $240, $250 and then crashing back down to, you know, $70 and, you know, people weren't buying them and they were just sitting there. But we've never actually had a significant crash in Pokemon of modern, like that rivaled what happened in sports and what happened in comic books. So now that may not come in Pokemon because Pokemon does a good job of not overprinting. Part of why it happened in sports is because every sports card company printed like 1 million sets and they were printing like 1 billion cards. So many cards, right? But we've never had a time where people are this bullish on Pokemon and so are hoarding the product as much as they're hoarding. We might never have had a time where Pokemon is printing as much as they're printing. Now, that may be next year, right? They may, because they didn't print enough, we may find that like almost disaster averted. Like it sucked that we couldn't get product this year. But if they had actually printed to demand, there would have been way too much product and people actually would have lost a lot of money in the long run. Whereas now the people who were able to get at least a little bit, we might be safer. All this stuff is just supply and demand stuff that we're trying to guess and speculate on. And I don't know the answer, but it's the fact that people don't, I feel like a lot of people buying the product, let me put it this way. I think a lot of people buying the product are not considering the possibility that it could go down to $10 or $15 a box. Like lots of product has gone in the world. And now, do I think that's going to happen? No, I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think it's going to happen in like one day. You know, I think it's more of like we could start to see a slow bleed, and then things become hard to sell, and then people start to undercut. And you know, worst case scenario, we'd be looking at those prices, and those are clearance sale prices, and those are the prices that, for example, Dragon Ball Z Panini. Right, you could buy Dragon Ball Z Panini for $5, $10 a booster box. 3 years before that, it was selling for $70 to $90 a booster box. Now, it's different because Pokemon is so strong right now. But the people who are just holding forever, you have to understand how these markets can fall apart, you know, and yeah. So, you know, and honestly, I'm your biggest friend if you're investing in modern, because if I like convince people not to do it, it's a much better investment for you. So I always laugh when I think that, you know, because the reason like Rudy in part has been so successful is because no one else was doing what he did. And he actually quartered 10-20% of these markets. So it's just a very different environment. And I think nobody knows is my honest opinion, how it's going to shake out. And so just be financially responsible. And I know Nav and you know, and Mason always talk about financial responsibility and stuff like that. So it's if you're doing this and you're doing this for fun and a little bit of extra income, all investing is risk and gambling. And so and I'm not saying it's a bad gamble. Like I don't fundamentally disagree with Nav that like you should buy modern booster boxes and there's like a good chance you'll make like $30 in 6 months in normal times in a year, and it'll go back to what was happening in 2017, right? I think that as long as Pokemon stays healthy, that's probably the most likely scenario, you know, to go back to something like that. But if you're buying them at $500, $600, $700, $800, $2,000 for an XY, like you're taking a much bigger gamble, and it could pay off. But it's a much, you know, and to go to Nav's point, which was great about the, you know, your cost basis, right? Part of it is that too. Although I will say, people can trick themselves into like, well, I'm only buying, like, it's only $80, so how low can it go? Well, if you buy 100,000 of something at $80, or you buy 100,000 of something at $2,000, both can go to zero, and you'll lose the exact same amount of money. And it's a psychological game theory fallacy that people make, where it's like, if I buy something cheap, it won't go down. And I don't think that people are necessarily making that here, but it's just be aware of that, of these pitfalls. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of that. I mean, it's collectibles are volatile. They are trendy. They are they get little peaks and valleys here and there where they're popular and then they fall out. One thing that is kind of interesting and that about Pokemon is that we got to remember that it is a game, and there is people in the communities out there that are buying these cards that do use them to play the game. So packs are inevitable. Opening packs are inevitable. There is product being opened. There is not just everybody that's buying a box is sitting on it. Kind of a situation like that, because singles have to come from somewhere. So if the worst came to worst, stores would be busting through boxes and selling the singles. So obviously that's just got to be financially viable. Hasn't been in a long time. I've not known any stores to open large amounts of product to make money in Pokemon singles for a very long time. But yeah, I mean, it has utility other than just like a binder collection or to get graded and things like that. So I do agree with you to that extent, Jake, that it's fatty. We're in a unprecedented time, but definitely there's modern is and will be desirable for at least these sets, at least for 2 years, while it's in standard of some kind. So that is a pittance of what is actually created, and we all know that. But it's just something to think about. That like I've said, I have 250 ETBs of Battle Style sitting in my floor of my room on the other side of this wall, and I'm not worried about it yet because I have 2 years until I have to worry about moving that product into where it could potentially start to at least have no viability to a game store that sells to both players and collectors. So of course I'm in a unique situation as well. Not everybody is banking on players that something great is going to be broken in this set that just came out half a year ago, and then they release something later on and it makes it really good. That's not something that's a whole different kind of risk. And if you're playing that kind of game, you're way heads of me even. So you're doing great if you can predict that kind of stuff. So, but yeah.
And that's really important in the floor is the players. So like players, Magic players, Pokemon, like there's a reason why even during those low collection times, these.
Uh-oh. We lost Jake.
I think our stream might have. Man, YouTube did this last time too.
Uh-oh.
Let's see. I think we might be okay. Hey, if you guys can still hear us in the chat, then go ahead and let us know. This happened to us when we were speaking last time too, Mason, where it was kind of like a site-wide, a YouTube-wide thing. Okay, it looks like only Jake is gone right now. I'm sure he'll... Yeah, there he is.
Jake, come back.
He's popping back in.
There
he is.
Oh, there you are. Perfect.
All right, I guess we're good. It looks like everybody in the chat saying the stream is fine.
Okay.
So we'll blame it on Jake.
I mean, I think I'm having a little bit of an internet issue, which I haven't had in a while. I've had a bunch of good streams in a row, so unfortunately.
You're due for one.
I live on an island. It's just
that's true. Mason, one thing that I wanted to piggyback off of what you were saying too, of not just the players and the tournaments and these type of things, but Pokemon as an IP, like the umbrella of Pokemon, they have so many other avenues, right? They continually bring people into the hobby, and those people always siphon down to the TCG. So you're always going to have more anime releasing. You're going to have more video games releasing. You're going to have, other toys releasing. All these different things that Pokemon as a conglomerate is constantly feeding out to the public, and it's inevitable that through those various channels, people almost always they siphon down right into the TCG. So I think that's one thing about Pokemon that is so unique, and I think that will help it stand the test of time, is because unlike something like Magic, which is almost predominantly just a TCG, just surrounded around the trading card game, and you know, others out there as well. I'm thinking of like Digimon as well, and especially something like MetaZoo that is just being released. Pokemon, you know, as a company, there's just so many different facets to it that kind of always push people back into the TCG. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a factor that, you know, other collectibles like sports cards and you know, stuff like that. There's utility to these things outside of just collecting. So, just a thought. You know, that's why, you know, short term, to say that it's there's a floor. There's not, but you know, if there's any more that's going out to the market, it has to be sold to LGSs or, you know, even Walmarts and Targets at a certain price. So there theoretically is a floor, but of course it could all, you know, down the road after that, who knows which direction it could potentially go. Mm-hmm. Most times it goes up as things get more rare, but that's not a sure bet. And I'm not trying to argue that fact. I'm just saying there is things to consider and things that play into that outside of what normal other collectibles might.
Mm-hmm. And we've experienced that a few times before. Oh, sorry, Jake. I was just going to say, you know, we've experienced it a few times before. You know, I've talked also about a price floor, but it's not always the case. That floor can be cracked. It can be broken. We saw that with Evolutions. We saw that with Roaring Skies. We saw that with other sets in the past. Not too often, but that floor can be cracked.
No, yeah. I would even say Battle Styles is almost to that point where it's you know, going to quickly become you know, a loss leader, I guess you could call it, if you were trying to move those boxes sealed. If you're holding a lot of it and you need the capital, that's how these situations start. So
yeah, excellent.
Yeah, I think my advice and perspective is more relevant to people who want to hold these boxes for a really long time, and maybe don't even want to check the market that much. It's more of like, I'm just going to kind of put them away and not be super engaged, you know? So right. I think, you know, someone like Mason and Nav here, you know, who are running businesses are going to be really quick to react to macro, to different trends. Like, you know, Mason all the time probably adds new games to his repertoire and takes out other ones that aren't selling and aren't doing well. Now, Pokemon is a juggernaut. So it's a complete juggernaut. We're in the middle of a boom period in Pokemon. I don't think the boom period is going to end. I just want people to understand what they're putting their money into. That's and that you can't. It's very difficult to predict like human psychology around these fads. Like it's weird. People like can be so sure of something one day and then just like completely change their feeling. To Nav's point earlier about often people's psychology is backwards in investing and counterintuitive. You know, about like. You know, and it's exactly how I feel right now about rarity. People are investing too much in rarity now. There's been a swing away. So there's some better opportunity in some set cards right now. And the whole year I've been telling people rarity, and everyone's been telling me set cards. But
it's SM Pratt Tennant. It's the second one.
Yeah, you know,
rarity. It's there. It's in the thing.
Yeah, and you know, and now we're seeing record high prices on a lot of those cards that I was saying, you know, these are the items that are really undervalued. And we've seen pullback on your Jungle PSA 10 first edition, you know, all these great, amazing historic set cards that now I would rather own those for some of those prices than paying $40,000, $50,000, $75,000 for certain cards that are not like, to me, the key trophy in the hobby or the key top, you know, so but those are just my opinions, and you got to invest on your own opinions. You may be right or wrong, but the point is that you can't just be like, this is how I do it, and this is the item that's always the best. The way that I invest really shifts, and it all depends on the current climate and the current moment.
Yes, definitely. Circling back to Nav, your question from like 30 minutes ago at this point. The situations where stores get into that kind of trouble is by doing everything exactly how they did it previously. And, you know, you have to acknowledge that you have to be very quick on your feet. You have to be very savvy, educate yourself, look at history, look at what's coming out in the future. You have to be very involved in order to make these correct decisions. And Lord knows I made some very bad decisions along this last year. But I'm still here. I'm still, holding on. So I must have made some more right than wrong. But just as a business, that's just what you have to do. You take all the information that you have and acknowledge the facts, and kind of take the opinion out of it, and look at the raw information and just look at things. It's like, okay, if I have this and it's pre-selling for above MSRP, wow, people must really want this. It must be a good thing. That's not, we all act like it's common sense, but just people that are not in the market and not familiar, it may not be so obvious. So that's, as a business, is where we really kind of have to excel at, is really knowing where the trends are going, acknowledging trends, and then ordering and pricing accordingly. That's just where you find your best strengths as a business. Acknowledge that we are in unprecedented times. Acknowledge that these may not always be this way, and that as a business, get what you can while you can. That's just the reality of a business. Mm-hmm. So do everything you can to capitalize on any advantage you get, because who knows how long you're going to have it. We will go back to how things were before. I think we are already getting to that point, but obviously the next two sets are going to be crazy, and there's still way influx of demand that there was before at this point. And we're seeing it across the board, not just for sealed. I'm selling more vintage cards, I'm selling more graded cards, I'm selling more standard staples for people that are interested in actually picking up and playing the game. It's across the board, and that's something. There's substance to that, and that's not just a blip and a fluke that this is happening. And we just have to acknowledge and keep a close eye on it, and make sure that we're ordering correctly and playing it maybe a little safe. But while the heat is on, that's when you need to start moving stuff. So that's where it is as a business. I think Jody even put in the chat, he asked if I'm putting anything away right now. No. Lord, no. I'm moving this stuff while there's buyers plentiful. And that's the way, as a business, you probably should be operating. Where that, there's probably LGSs in this country that have boxes of Diamond and Pearl booster boxes in their back storage that they may not even know they have, that they just held on to. Did they just get lucky? Of course, they didn't plan that, but that's just how things go. So,
and that's the precise reason why these old vintage boxes are valuable. Is you can go to any LGS, and I've talked to tons of LGS store owners, across the country, and they sold everything they had, and the only reason they have anything left is just sheer luck. Like they forgot about it, or something didn't sell, or they were unable to sell something. That's a completely different climate than we have now, where LGSs are still selling everything, but people, your average person, is holding it before everything got opened. So, the vast majority, it was very unusual. And we still, guys, have tens of thousands, or at least probably 10,000 base set booster boxes, because there were so many printed. So how many of these modern sets are we getting? So it's what, we'll see where it goes. But I think there's a reason why the most, like, the people who, like, a lot of us this year who made, $1 million, millions of dollars, some of these big sellers, they sold. It was through selling. They sold into it. And I just don't want people to be getting into something that they're not passionate about and don't really like. I think if it brings you happiness to own these things and put them away, you should absolutely do it. Absolutely. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the people that don't have the knowledge and don't have the experience and don't know how this works that are ultimately going to get burned. All these stores that are opening up and people that want to open a store and see the crazy prices that things were doing. You're already too late. Like we are in positions, stores that are established, these stores have been 3+ years and have these allocations built up and have this relationship with distributors and multiple distributors. You're too late to the party, because those guys are going to favor people that were here from the beginning and bought the Roaring Skies and the evolutions before the stonks happened and all that. They are businesses, but they do have some sort of duty for a relationship that they built over time with LGSs and just businesses in general.
I view it as like, I view it more as like, if you want to open an LGS, you should. That's how I honestly view it. And Mason and I see this a little bit differently, but for me, I see it as like, but be realistic. Like, when I talk to you, I want to hear, like, if I'm going to be confident in you, I want to hear your business plan and that you're realistic about how much work it's going to be and your profits and all these sorts of things, and that you probably are pretty independently wealthy or have some amount of money you can put into it or all those sorts of things. And I think that that's just my opinion and perspective from having talked to people. Mason is an actual LGS owner. I just talked to a bunch of them, but I think from a therapist, I think it's the therapist in me. Follow your dreams, and when you work really hard at something and you become very educated and you learn, like, you can build yourself into this. Like, you can develop relationships with distributors over time, but it's
definitely. I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
I'm not saying don't do it. There's no, if you really want to be doing this.
Really, yeah, but
now is the time as good as any. I mean, it's if it's right for your life, go ahead and do it.
I would say there are negatives and there are positives. The positives of how hot all these things are. Like, I think getting into cardboard right now is excellent because I think cardboard's hot. I think it's going to remain hot and sustain for a while. The hard part is the advantage. The hard part is how many people are trying to jump into the business and are going to be competing for that amount. And the hard part is that you're starting at a big disadvantage from someone like Mason, who has the relationships for a long time.
I'm not even a big fish, and you're at a disadvantage to me. So that's saying something.
For example, like someone like Nav jumped into business with someone who already had relationships rather than starting his own thing.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
But precisely because he knows that it's challenging to build those relationships, and
it's next to impossible. I mean, there's shops here in the local Phoenix area that are opening up all the time and are coming to us on a daily basis, just saying, can you guys give me anything? I can't get any. Like, to try to go and apply with GTS, Southern Hobby Alliance, any of these distributors right now, Mason, you know what I'm talking about here. It's like, oh, you want some Evolving Skies? Well, I'll tell you what. We'll go ahead and spend $25,000 on this set that is going to be crap, and we'll go ahead and give you a couple cases of Evolving Skies. That's basically how it is. Yeah. And for somebody that is just starting out, you've got your rent, you've got your lease, you've got the overhead, you've got all of these things that go into opening a standard brick and mortar LGS. It's almost next to impossible for them. And then on top of that, if you're not meeting the demand of your consumer base, especially for something that is hot like Pokemon, you're just not going to get foot traffic. And LGS relies on the foot traffic unless you're doing some selling online, which I think most do, right? You're going to have different areas. You're going to have your in-store sales. You're going to have your TCG player. You're going to have these different various means of generating revenue off of your products. But for these guys starting out, it's just crazy. It's just crazy right now. And I can't say that it's maybe been easier in the past, because I don't think it's ever easy to start a business. But I know from me personally, even just from an individual standpoint, when back in 2016, I applied with GTS and got right in. Just as a regular online third-party dealer, got right in with GTS. No problems. I could go weeks at a time without ordering anything, could put in another order with GTS and be like, yeah, we can go ahead and get you that. Whereas now, if Mason, again, he can attest to this, if you're not putting out the big spend, you're just not going to get anything. And even if you are putting out the big spend, for those that aren't absolutely maxing out their numbers on everything, you're still going to get allocated pretty heavily.
No, yeah. With my main distributor, Southern is my main. Nav, just with I'm going to go back to the Marnie tournament collections just because they're the freshest thing in my mind about just silly allocations. Even with my main guys, I got less than 20% of what I asked for. I only asked for 500. Only. I say only, but that's a lot. That's a lot. But my sales rep was saying that there's people that had orders in for 1,500 of them, 2,000 of them. So, I mean, it doesn't matter what the number is. You could put in 10,000 of them. The history is what dictates what your number is going to be. And it used to be, when this all started, not the case. But I think there's no point in distributors not playing favorites to the older stores, because if the sales all go to nothing in a month, I'm going to still be ordering stuff from them, whereas those other guys aren't. So it makes sense that to keep me happy and keep product flowing my way. So that's just the logic behind that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the nature of the beast, and again, to your point, Jake, there's absolutely no way. There's no way that I could have been able to start this without partnering with somebody that had been in this environment for quite some time. Not just from the standard LGS, but also as a distributor who is also providing products to a lot of these other stores. A lot of the from the manufacturer level to the other distributor level, Southern Hobby, Alliance, all these others, they want to see that, right? They want to see that large consumer base, and I saw the writing on the wall there. And Rocky and I have said before, there's no way that we would have been able to do this if we didn't have each other, because we both bring something to the table that allows for something like this to even have a chance of getting off the ground. And I feel for the LGSs out there. And I feel for the people that are trying to do this as as an online third-party dealer as well, because it's very, very tough, and it could all change. To Mason's point, this could all change, and a lot of these people, as soon as it doesn't seem as appealing anymore, maybe the margins aren't there, the demand isn't there. A lot of these people, much what we saw in the same manner as investors, we saw a lot of people that have fled over these last few months. You can see the same thing there with business owners, with entrepreneurs. It's the same kind of fleeting market when the getting's not good anymore.
No, yeah. When the pandemic hit, it's estimated, I think, a third of all the OGSs in the U.S. were closed, and they did not reopen. And that kind of did leave a hole and opportunity there for some people when the run up for Pokemon and pretty much any TCG, any TCG right now is popping pretty good. So, there was opportunity there, and then there was too much of an influx. So, that third got replaced and then some, probably exponentially, from the way it sounds like, from the way the sales reps talk. So, it's interesting how quickly the market reacts to those sorts of things where, there may be a shortage or even just a local shortage, and people go in there and plug those holes. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. For sure. All right, Jake, let's go ahead and jump over to you, brother. I think you've had enough time to concoct your question.
I kind of just want to pass and just go to the chat. I feel like people are asking lots of questions. And the question that I had was I think maybe I'll save it for when the full panel is here, because it could be good to just hear everyone's different perspectives. Mm-hmm. And maybe we should just jump into some questions, but it's up to you.
I agree with you, man. I've actually seen some really good questions coming across the chat that I think would be just right for us here today. I think the people that we do have here would be just right. And Jake, if you saw one in particular, go ahead and start with that one.
I didn't have one in particular, but if we want to all three of us look, I mean, there were lots,
Mm-hmm. Well, Toybot Gaming has a good one here. It says, how come there's eBay sellers who never sold Pokemon before suddenly getting hundreds of boxes allocated to them? And, Mason, I'm sure you've seen this. There's a big, for anybody that's into Magic, there's a lot of controversy going on right now about Magic and Amazon, which I guess this has been going on for a while now. But it could be a similar situation, maybe, You want to maybe elaborate on the whole Amazon and Magic controversy, Mason?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what more or how. Oh, I just simplify it really quickly. Basically, Wizard of the Coast is basically short printing product, and instead of divvying all of that out to LGSs, they are just getting that extra 20% little boost, not going through distribution, and just warehousing it and selling it directly with Amazon, direct to consumer. So there was a time where they denied that they were doing this, but now it's very apparent that it is happening, and it's concerning in the point in that if I get a product that I sell out of, there was a recent set called Time Spiral Remastered. It was very heavy allocated. I got less than 30% of what I asked for. So that's a pretty big hit. But then Wizards was directly putting on Amazon this product weeks later in waves of just these amounts. And as the prices went higher and higher, they were selling it at that higher and higher price. So as a business, that totally makes sense. Why go through all this hassle of shipping this and dealing with distributors and with LGSs if they just cut them just a little tiny sliver, enough to satisfy maybe us for a month? That fad will die down, and then the product will still be desirable to the extent of a global or a national market. And if they intentionally, conspiracy hat, let's say, put on. If they intentionally limit this product to LGSs and only put it on Amazon in these ways, that they can pretty much charge whatever they want for it. And that is the theory of what is happening with pretty much every product since Time Spiral Remastered.
Interesting. And so, and the reason that I bring that up is because to Toybot's question here, I really don't know. I really don't know, and maybe you guys have a little more insight on why you do see, maybe what seems like a large cachet of products from eBay sellers or maybe sellers on TCG Player, which TCG Player could very well be LGSs, right? But yeah, go ahead, Jake. Looks like you have.
Yeah, I mean, I would just throw out a guess, which is just that there are people with long relationships for various reasons with people who, are distributors or know people at distributors, and Pokemon is such a hot selling thing that they're just giving it to family and friends, and people they've dealt with other things before. And there are tons of these huge eBay stores that have the whole selling, flipping online community, a lot of these people know each other. So that's what I would guess without actually knowing any specifics. But it's interesting. I didn't know that was happening. That's an interesting thing that you picked up on, Nav, or noticed when you were browsing.
Yeah. I mean, I know that out there, even before all the craziness, that there's people that had just any businesses, trucking companies, collision repair services, that would have an account with these hobby stores, because all you need is a business account. It doesn't have to be particularly hobby related for certain things. Some, like Wizards of the Coast, requires a brick and mortar to get product, but Pokemon does not. Anybody can buy Pokemon so long as you have a business. And these guys would just order a silly amount of product, and then if they can sell it for $5, $10, $15 over, if they can make $30 on a case, if they buy a pallet of this, that's several thousands of dollars just for slapping a label on it. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you do that if you just had the money and the capital to do so? So there's a lot of people that did that, and obviously those people got smart when the prices went up, and that they were like, okay, I'm not going to sell this by the case to people on Facebook. I'm just going to sell it on eBay myself and make even more money. So yeah, that is just people that had opportunity to buy product because they had the established relationships or knew somebody and had bought stuff maybe previously and were hey, I'm a Pokemon store now, even though it's only online. So I've seen it happen. I know people that do it, and it's a thing. Yes.
Interesting. Wow.
Alex Saunders here has I think an interesting question for us. With the potential oversupply of slabs coming back from PSA/CGC and grading prices high, how have you thought about grading raw cards, looking to capitalize on the next potential upswing in the next 5 years? So honestly, I think one play that is going to emerge is going to be buying cards under the price of grading again. And I think that the grading prices may not come down. So I would actually be looking to pick up really cheap slabs at some point down the line. So I actually would expect that's where the swing is going to happen again, where we're going to see people fire selling slabs at too cheap of a price. And eventually those are going to be absorbed, the junk slabs as we call them. But because grading is $20 and may not come down below like 15, even like if you're getting like cards for like not, PSA 10s of like pretty decent, of like a rainbow rare for like $12, $15, $18 sometime in the future, like that's really good value. So that's what I did. That's how I built up a lot of my collection. And I like going after the low end when it's really cheap like that, because it's very low risk. Now you have to be very careful in that, and you have to really know, like, you have to be watching the pop reports, and you don't want to get slammed. You don't want to buy. I wouldn't buy. That one danger there can be is you can see a listing, like someone might have like 30. Let's just take like the Charizard GX from like the Hidden Fates 10. Like someone may have a listing where they put up like 30 of them, right? PSA 10s that they're trying to sell. And then you might buy them thinking like, okay, these are like the last ones on the market, or we're getting close. And then the guy might list another 100, the same guy the next day. You just want to be careful. Like
stores definitely do that. That is a thing that stores do.
So, you don't know how deep the supply is when you see those huge piles. But I think that's where I would be looking at more than you grading. I would not be grading fairly low end cards right now. Like I think it's a humongous mistake that people are making, unless you are a business like Mason and you have a store and you get really good, like you just have local people coming in who just love slabs and pay you like $50 for any slabs. And I know guys like that. Right?
I wish. God.
Yeah. And Mason's in it. I know like someone in California who has like that type of crowd or that type of situation. So it also depends on like where you're located and the type of people who are coming into your store, what they're looking for. But there's a lot of people running to LGSs right now looking for slabs, depending on the location. So having cheap slabs as inventory for that is a different sort of thing. So everyone's business is very different. So, people, my advice is not going to work for everyone, but that's what I would generally say. What do you guys think about that question? So I think it's it touches on some interesting things. Oh, I do want to say, sorry, one more thing. There also is going to be, there's a potential, how I always try to talk about and teach people that people price in the future or what people think are going to happen. Okay. So I think a lot of the market is now getting to the point where they're embracing this message that there's going to be so many of these cards, and so none of these things are going to have value. Now, that is going to be priced into the market now. And if people overreact and actually there ends up being less of certain things than we think, those prices may come back up, and there might be opportunity there if you're watching closely. So clearly, like sets like Evolutions and Hidden Fates, like there's just endless stuff being graded right now. But there are other sets that may not be endless stuff being graded for, because it actually wasn't printed that much and the pull rates are really bad. And, so that's the type of stuff that I'd be, like some of those like Unbroken Bonds, team up sets, like if you're interested in Modern, like there might be some like cards from those that have like two really popular Pokemon, first ever of them teaming up on a card that suddenly drops really low because people think there's going to be a lot of it. And then there turns out not to be that much of it, or a lot less than people think. So thinking about the people you're always looking for people to overreact, either too positively and then you sell to them, or too negatively and then you buy to them. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely graded is so out of my element, out of my wheelhouse. Like I said, we're getting them just because a lot of people were dumping them for a little bit. I actually did buy like 10 of them the other day. Just terrible decisions to grade stuff, and it's just like, why? And then you bring them to me, and what am I supposed to do with them? Yeah, so definitely a lot of that is probably going to continue. And as stores like me uh, take them begrudgingly, reluctantly, yeah, we'll probably see prices not do so hot, even on in LGSs or eBay and all the places that we have to turn to get rid of these sixes of these Charizard GXs. So yeah, it's kind of wild thing to watch. As somebody that was not into grading, I kind of had to educate myself and learn and ask my buddy Jake about all the intricacies of grading cards. So yeah, it's just it is not something that I expected to ever get into. And then about the point where I wanted to get into it, the market exploded, and then I couldn't anymore because everybody was doing it. So yeah, it's weird as a store. It's not typically like I'm a store that sells to players and binder collectors. That's my clientele. I do have collectors, and I would say that the concept of even collecting a graded card to the more casual Pokemon fan was never something that would have crossed their mind. We see PSA slabs as almost like elitist, almost to a point to where this is just a card encased in plastic that I could just buy right here, right now, for a fraction of the price and put in my binder and be happy. Mm-hmm. So it's how this hobby has evolved in that regard. It's kind of an interesting thing to watch, and I think that's going to probably stick around. I don't think grading cards and people desiring graded cards is going to go away. I think it's PSA is probably going to be okay here in the near future. Even if things do cool down, I think they're going to be okay.
It'll be interesting to see if your community evolves over time, Mason. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say that it already has. People that would never bought a graded card before, the years that I've known them, now all of a sudden, might buy their favorite Pokemon in something like that. So there's definitely people that are the market for graded cards did grow and is growing, but will it outpace what's coming back? I don't know.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I entered in a bunch of new markets this year that don't do grading, and a lot of the guys would say the same thing. Like the biggest guys in those spaces were like, grading stupid. Why would people pay extra for that? It doesn't make any sense. So it's really interesting, like the different perspectives on these things.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I agree with you too, Jake. One of the things that I've recommended as well with the increased cost of grading, of looking at, rather than going out where in the past maybe you went out, you bought a master set or a whole raw collection and then went out and got it graded, and you could have that quick turnaround, right? You could have that quick turnaround, that quick flip, and be able to build that profit. Now it almost seems like it's a more fruitful venture to just go out and buy the slabs themselves, especially with prices retracing. You can just cut out that whole middle section and just buy the slabs. From an opportunity standpoint within slabs, one of the things that I found really interesting is, from that supply standpoint as well, I've really been focusing a lot on CGC and looking at how few and far between I see near mint CGC cards that come back on the market, especially 9.5s and higher. Just the other day, I saw for the first time, somebody had reached out to me over Instagram. I saw for the first time CGC 10s. I had never seen an actual CGC 10 before, and they were modern cards. I've never seen any vintage CGC 10s, but that could very well be an opportunity. And that price differential from an equivalently graded CGC to PSA, so a CGC 9 to a PSA 9, or sometimes even a CGC 9.5 to a PSA 9, there is still a big difference there. And so that could very well be an opportunity for people that are looking not only to buy more slabs and maybe bypass the grading process itself, but also looking at it from a value investment standpoint of looking at CGC for, you know, something to hold on to, you know, for a longer period of time.
Do you guys watch Speed's channel?
Mm-hmm.
And like
yeah.
all of his returns he's getting here, and it's just like the anguish that he gets when he gets another CGC like 8.5 or 9 is just so, it's so like topical and relevant to like people that,
yeah,
you know. And Speed is, he's not new to grading cards. Obviously he's, you know, he's graded lots of cards, but yeah, CGC is just, it's a different kind of breed over there. They got a different thing going on. So it's wild. It's fun to watch his reaction. I feel bad for him, but it's good content. It's good. It's good watching.
I mean, I you know, and have said on my channel this whole way that I would never grade with CGC like in this climate at all. Like it, to
still,
me,
you would still not.
Definitely not. Like unless you are flipping and have direct people you're selling to, and you have a churn business where you're churning. That type of person's completely different. As an investor, it's a much better deal to try to pick up these slabs cheap, because they're actually, as you know, just as Nav was saying, you know, some of those 9s and 9.5s could be PSA 10 someday. You could cross grade that. Like, I'd much rather be buying CGC graded cards right now in this environment than grading my own cards in CGC and selling them at prices that are probably lower than what they're actually worth or what I could get if I graded that. So, but I'm not someone who relies on churn. I'm someone who likes to buy $20,000 plus collections and sell $20,000 plus lots, right? So for me, it's about patience. I only need to buy like 5-6 things a year, sell 5-6 things a year, right? So for me, it's very easy for me to be super patient on PSA and getting my cards back and other sorts of things. So if that's not what you're doing, and a lot of people who are doing this aren't necessarily a business, but the only way they can buy more cards is if they make money, because they don't have income coming from other places.
No, yeah. So, I mean, as a business, it was grading cards or grading raw cards and flipping them integrated, never would have crossed my mind.
Yeah. And so I think that if you're smart and you study the CGC market, I'm sure there's opportunity there to still be to grading with CGC and flipping cards and making little, even if it's not huge gains, making some gains. And I'm not saying don't do that. I just think that I would definitely not be sending like high-end stuff to CGC. Like, you know, outside of, you know, and this is nothing, and CGC is a great company. It's just the market's irrational, right? Some people are going to hear this as maybe a slight on CGC. It's really a slight on people being irrational and that the market just doesn't value the cards in a CGC case as nearly as much as they do in a PSA. And I don't know if they ever will. And I don't know if they ever should. You know, brand it's tough, and people like uniformity in their collecting, right? They're comfortable with PSA. All their cards are already with PSA. It's like, I want to complete sets just in PSA cases. I don't want to have a mix match set, you know, things like that too. So there's just a lot of that stuff happening. But, you know, CGC is a great company, and one thing that CGC is doing well is grading errors and grading more unusual cards well. Like when we look at like high end, you know, Protostoist, Protoblastoist, those types of items, like obviously they're the only ones, right, correctly grading those or trying to grade those types of things. So they're doing some cool stuff. But particularly your sort of bulkish modern, where you're trying to grade a bunch of stuff and then sell it for like $40 each, like you could just get slammed. And there are all sorts of fees, particularly for someone who like has never done it before, you know, and is just jumping into it. Sit down and do the math. You got to do the math. And then you got to factor in shipping fees, and that eBay is going to take, you know, we're talking, you know, 13% with PayPal. Like you got to know what's happening here.
So Jake, you don't buy CGC anything?
No, I do say that. So I bought a little bit. So I would buy CGC with the idea that I'm probably going to cross grade these cards eventually.
Yeah, exactly.
So I agree with what Nav was saying. Like for me, I think that the much better deals are buying the CGC graded cards, which might be undervalued, versus actually grading more with them, which sucks for the company. And I want that company to succeed. And I like the people over there. So I hate that it's not, you know, but it is what it is. You have to be realistic with what people are actually willing to pay. You know,
I would say that fulcrum point, right, is And I don't know if you guys have gotten any submissions back. I still got 2 big submissions out with PSA, and I'm interested to see, now that they have gone with Gen Mint, how that's going to tilt, right? How is that going to tilt the overall amount of Gem Mint cards coming back, or even near Mint cards coming back from PSA? And that to me could be kind of the tipping point, where if we're seeing something similar with PSA, it's going to do probably a few things, right? It's going to increase the value. It's going to increase that need and that desire for a PSA 10, and then it could even shift that CGC 9.5 to the heights that maybe it should be at, right? That 9.5 or that CGC 10. It's just strange. I'm interested if you guys have gotten anything back from PSA, and if you've seen any type of difference.
I haven't gotten anything back in like maybe 4 months was my last time I got stuff back. Something like that. I have a few hundred cards there still.
That's what I want to get as well.
I have about 500 cards that are sitting waiting to be graded.
Yeah.
A lot of it's not Pokemon.
It's just it's crazy to me that the grading company that is universally said to be the harshest, that their stuff is still cheaper. It's just is a weird phenomenon to me. I don't know.
Human nature, man. You're gonna pay more for an 8.5 or a 10, the highest.
No,
possible.
I mean, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. It's just
no one's ever gonna pay as much for those as they will
ever.
I think. Yeah. Now, and maybe I'm wrong. The one scenario I could see is if PSA really loses credibility and people start to look at 10s and they're just like, they're not 10s. And I don't even trust PSA anymore. Like if PSA like really lost intense credibility.
Even if it was like a 10 for a 10?
Oh, no. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying a 10, like a, not, 10s and 9.5s will be the thing that like, if CGC 9.5s ever sell for close to 10s, even close to 10s, it means they're doing excellent. Because if you check Beckett prices, which has been around a lot longer, and you look at Beckett 9.5s compared to 10s, now a really strong Beckett with like quad subgrades for people who don't really know that much about grading, it just means that you have 9.5s or higher on each. So you have a 9.5 quad, which means 9.5 or higher. 9.5s or higher for each of the 4 subgrades means you have a pretty good chance at a PSA 10. Usually, if you have any 9s, it's not going to get a 10. Usually that'll get a 9 at PSA. And so we'll have to see if CGC is similar, but the 9.5s sell way closer to the 9s than they sell a 9.5 BGS sells way closer to a PSA 9 than it does to a PSA 10. It's not like it's halfway. PSA 10s get like a 10x, and then the 9, like if the 9 is sitting at $100, the PSA 10 is sitting at $1,000. The BGS 9.5 is probably going for like $180 to $200. It's not going for $500 right in between. So, it just is what it is. Now, if you have the subgrades really high, sometimes it can go decently high because people like to crack them, and these things are complicated. But whatever. But that's a quick. For those who don't know, it's sort of black label. Then you have your PSA 10, then you have your BGS 9.5, then you have your PSA 9, then you have your BGS 9. That's sort of the order of grading in terms of what tends to get the highest price.
Is there any card that you would prefer a Beckett or a CGC 10 in, as opposed to a PSA 10?
Well, Beckett 10s go for more than PSA 10s.
I just mean you personally. You personally, would you prefer? Yes.
To be completely honest with you, pristine 10s kind of annoy me because they're not really perfect. Even though a pristine 10 is like, to me, pristine 10s are overvalued. I don't think black labels are overvalued, but for me personally, just as a collector, pristine 10s don't really give me huge value over PSA 10s, even though they're worth quite a bit more. In fact, I kind of like PSA 10s better. Hot take right here. Not as investment, just as a pure collector.
I mean, that's the answer I expected, so I'm not surprised.
10, 10, 10, 9.5 bothers me. The 9.5 bothers me.
Now, here's the thing. Obviously, with PSA, we don't have the subgrades, but there's that expectation, right? That a PSA 10, we've always known that even a PSA 10 there is a slight imperfection. They allow within their margin of error a slight imperfection. So and again, this is just like you talk about, Jake. It's the psychology. We already know that a PSA 10 is not a perfect card. It's not. It's just not a perfect card. It's very similar to a Beckett Pristine 10, but just that. And maybe this is the brilliance of PSA of not doing the subgrades, where they've just found, hey, if we slap one grade on there, we call it PSA 10. This is our highest grade that we offer. Market responds to that. Psychology of people respond to that.
You want to see this 10? Let's see if it can show on the camera. Let's see. Let's show. There's a huge white line. Like a huge amount of white damage there. Like this is like a 7 and it got a 10.
Oh yeah, I can see it now.
It's really bad. Yep, 10. PSA 10 right there. But better than the Beckett. In that situation, it's not. I mean, I really, what I tell people is buy the card and the grade. And that's just that's how people are always going to do it. So that's my opinion on it, but we'll see.
We'll go ahead and I think this will probably round us out here. This is kind of a piggyback question off of what we've been talking about. Forest Hill, will other grading companies compete for the standard company investors and collectors go through, and how will the future value of graded cards fluctuate in the future? There's a lot of there's a lot in there.
Okay.
So I guess I think the core of the question is, will there be particular grading companies as things start to change? Will they be vying more for the collector, and will other grading companies be vying more for the investors out there? That's kind of what I gathered. You guys can tell me if you read that differently.
I'm trying to read the question again. I'm sorry.
I'm just looking for it.
It's Forest Hill. It's not too far up.
Can I say one thing just about a couple responses in the chat? So people are saying right now, a couple people, that I'm hating on CGC and that they disagree with me. It's a fact. That's just what the market prices are. I study the market. I'm not telling you guys. This is what drives me crazy on the internet. I'm not telling you guys that it's what it should be. I'm just telling you that these are the prices that things are going for. Okay, so yeah.
Well, and it's true. I mean, we were just talking about that, right?
No, yeah.
We were just talking about how it's like a cognitive dissonance, or a dissonance rather, that exists, but that's just the way that the market is. Something like the market doesn't care about your feelings, right? The market is going to do what the market is going to do, and we're just stating the fact of what currently is transpiring.
Yeah. Sorry, let me see. So will other grading companies compete for the standard company investors and collectors go through? I mean, that's clearly what's happening, right? It's just there's all these new.
We're in that right now.
Yeah, they're grading card companies popping up all over the world, competing for like the England, like I think Randolph's doing like competing for the UK market, competing for the Australian market, competing for more of the Japanese market, etc. The list goes on and on and on. And where there is money and interest, their business will follow. It's capitalism. So if there's demand, these things will open up, trying to capitalize on that demand. Will the demand continue, and will these things ever take over? What I would say is like probably not, but maybe. I mean, I think that's probably the only So it's I try to bet on very safe things, and I try to not take long shots, and I wouldn't like create a bunch of cards with a brand new grading company thinking that like that's the smart financial move. I think that doesn't make any sense. I wouldn't have been the guy to buy Amazon early, but hopefully I would have been the guy to buy it somewhere on the way up when I realize what it is, and I think that's the way to generally invest. So
what are you thinking, Mason?
No, I mean, Jake is logically sound. There's no doubt about that. I love his hot takes, and that's why I poke him to get those sort of takes out of him, because he is very smart about how everybody else trends, but he kind of trailblazes his own path with what he does, and it's fascinating to me.
And it'll be interesting. I will find it very interesting how all of this transpires with, especially with the introduction of AI, right? That's one thing that I've always talked about is maybe the common denominator that will eventually exist is if there is this full introduction of AI into grading and everybody's essentially on par with each other with their grading system and the AI and the algorithm that is being used for that, then what is the distinguishing feature between the various grading companies? If you can send it to any grading company and the expectation is that it will be consistent across all platforms, then how do you decide? Do you go with the most established? Do you go with the slab that's most aesthetically pleasing, which maybe garners you a higher premium just based upon that? That's what I'm interested in seeing. Yeah. Mason, did we lose Jake again?
I think maybe he just flipped his camera off because it's not looking so great. Have you seen the grading company that King Pokemon Gary is doing with MetaZoo and showing how they have like different aesthetics of even the tops of their slabs that they have? They can choose design and color scheme to a certain extent. Hey, there you go, Jake. Look at you now.
There he is.
Man. That's an interesting idea that you could pick and choose maybe a God, what am I talking about? A label that it looks best with your card or matches your card. I think you kind of lose the branding of your company that way, but it's an interesting idea. I don't know if that's going to garnish them any more business. Like, I don't know, maybe I want on my dark type Pokemon, I want a dark label. I don't know, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think like PSA can adapt these things, So it's sort of like whatever works. I think the competition is good for us because hopefully, like PSA could be a much better company. Like everyone agrees on that. Like they can do a much better job with grading, much better job with consistency, much better job with customer service, much better job with tracking. Like we should have digital NFT type, tracking, on our cards where it connects to another, a digital item that we own online that tracks our specific and that can then show the provenance of an item and can track.
Isn't that a thing? Isn't that what they're working on?
But there are all sorts of like cool things, right, that they could do.
Yeah. And
see what they do, what they don't do. Probably it's going to be a bottom line thing. It's like if they're not making any more money by making a cooler product, they're not. They'll keep their product lame until they have to make it cool and expensive in order to continue to get as big of a market share. So I think it's great these other companies are going to compete and hopefully drive them. It's capitalism, guys. Like they'll make a better product if they have to. But I will say for investors, all these other grading companies can pose a risk because they can dilute the importance and the value of your PSA card potentially somewhere down the line. So as someone who owns tons and tons of PSA cards in cases, like 15,000, right? PSA, graded cards or something crazy. It's scary that all these grading companies are going to try and compete for the space. And I don't want these cards to PSA to lose that sort of thing. So, but I'm well aware of like my biases in that. I think that there are things, PSA is certainly grading harder right now. And the 10s that people are getting now are way more likely to actually be 10s. Like it's just a reality. Yeah. It's just way harder to get a 10 now. And even like the 9s and the 8s, they're really picking up their grading too. So, yeah.
And then the companies that buy the grading companies buy the auction companies, and they sell the auction. Yeah, it's just a big cycle.
It's crazy, and it's crazy that PSA just bought WADA and Golden and like all these, and like so they grade the video game. That they grade it higher. If they grade that Mario game higher, then they make immediate profit because they make more money as they sell it. So if that goes for 1.5 million, which it did, Golden Auctions makes a large chunk,
Can I throw something else? Another wrench out there?
20% of 1.5 million in like an instant, and they have that incentive to grade that higher so that it would sell for that. It's
Correct.
That's the world of business, and we need to be aware of people's motivation so you can protect yourself and navigate like these types of waters. But it's crazy.
Can I throw another wrench in there that is interesting, or another conspiracy hat going on? The parent company that owns Beckett just bought Southern Hobby.
Wow.
So they're just going to get cards directly from the source and be able to grade them through Beckett and move them that way.
They're going to get the most perfectly cut card sent directly. Oh my God, be horrible.
Yeah, I just got an email about that today. So
wow, interesting.
Cool.
It's interesting how all of this intermingling has transpired is over this last year, right? We really haven't seen this happen before, and now there's all of these mergers happening between these big entities that used to be, you know, just they're a sole entity, and now are coming together. And it's I you know, that tinfoil hat may be just right in this case. I think it may be well suited for this instance.
It makes for good content, anyways.
And I don't mean to say, like I wouldn't use the word corruption for this specifically, but like it's what I was talking about right early on my channel the whole time, is that during bubbles you see increase in market manipulation and fraud and all these sorts of things because there's money to be made. Wherever there's money to be made, there's an increase in negative, bad human behavior. And I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but if you don't realize that, because it just provides incentive, and a certain percentage of people will do crappy things for money. It's the world. So when there's that incentive, all of a sudden, and I think unfortunately, a lot of the toxicity this year has been directed at like some of the wrong people, actually, who like haven't done anything, like aren't like actually bad people. They just like the financial side, for example. Whereas really that they're right though that there's a huge element that came into Pokemon this year that was here to make money and would do it by any means necessary, whether it's punching a guy in the face and stealing cards from Target, you know, or what have you. And that is just a natural sign of bubbles and or just huge explosions in market, you know, where there's just lots of money. And you know, so that's why everyone needs to just be, you know, just be on guard for that sort of thing. Don't be a sheep. Don't be herded. Think for yourself.
What a weird thing to say at the end. Okay. Yeah.
Don't be a sheep. Don't be careful. Be careful. You know, think critically. Listen to lots of different opinions. Mm-hmm. Be careful. Be careful. So.
And I think that's something that you know, all three of us, and you know, I'll include James in there, Z, you know, John, Pokemon Radar. That's what I love, especially about these discussions. I love what you do on your channel as well, Jake, with guests, and Mason, the different viewpoints that you bring, and it's because it's good, right? It's good to get all these different viewpoints, to get this discussion, to have these type of roundtables and all these different things, because then you get a little more holistic picture, right, of what's going on out there, and can come to a more educated decision on what you should do. And I think above all else, one of the big changes that I have seen from this time last year until now is how much more educated the hobby as a whole really is. And I think that is a testament to you know, to the channels out there, to people that are coming together and being able to spread that message. And also just the people who wanted to stay in it for the long term are still here, and they're still listening, and they're still learning. And so that's a testament to everybody out there today, everybody that's in this live chat. If you're watching this on the replay, like, it's a testament to you as well, because you're wanting to continue to learn, and you're wanting to improve yourself, and to, you know, make this a sustainable hobby, investment, you know, whatever it is, for yourself. So it's good to see.
Yeah, and the better experience people have here, and the more knowledgeable they are, the more they're going to enjoy the hobby and then stay. Like, that type of education and content and all that stuff, that's what builds hobbies. That's what builds community and connection, and where people learn about that I will want this, right, and this sort of thing. So I think that it's vital to the health of a hobby, and social media has been an unbelievable thing in terms of like hobbies now being able to be a lot bigger and a lot stronger and more of a thing now, because it's communication is so easy with huge groups of people who have the same interests.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if we all made channels that catered to just what we knew, and we didn't do things like this, where we kind of mesh together and have multiple ideas, that kind of leads to burnout and leads to people leaving the hobby, because they may not think of another side of it. They may not think of, if they just get into modern, that there's 25 years worth of cards back there that you could be interested in. And how about putting them in little plastic slabs? That's cool. Let's get into that. And all this other stuff that people can do with inside this hobby. It variety allows you to grow and allows you to pick and choose where you want to go, and what you may find a new passion about something that you didn't even know about, that you would have otherwise maybe left the hobby if you didn't find out. So yeah, this kind of variety is good, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to thank you guys too. I mean, you after all of this, after what we've seen, we've also seen that in the content creation standpoint, where there's been a lot of content creators, people putting out content that have kind of gone by the wayside, that have subsided, and it's a testament to you guys as well of being here. It shows how much you deeply care about the hobbies, and how you care about the people in the hobbies. So I just want to give a big shout out to both of you. Thank both of you, because I've learned a tremendous amount myself from the both of you, and watching your videos and being able to have interviews with you guys as well. And it's just always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to sit down and have these chats. So I want to thank you guys again for coming on today.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, I think that'll be a good way to wrap it up for today. Before we do head out here, I'll give you guys an opportunity if you got anything that you want to announce that's coming up here soon, anything you got in the works, anything like that, or is it just basically business as usual?
Go ahead,
Jake,
man.
what do you got? What kind of content do you got coming out, Jake? You got a top 10 video or something that you want to put out? And
I was going to say, the other reason I do this is I'm trying to grow a business and make money off of Pokemon, both so that I can fund my collecting hobby, which is extremely expensive, but also because I have dreams now. I really want to open up like a museum for cards. I have like all sorts of big dreams that I want to do in the future and all that sort of stuff. So when I started my channel, it was purely to provide free information for people, and actually just for my passion and love and joy of the hobby. And now it's become also about money and trying to make money in a business, and just to be totally transparent for people. And so I have a Patreon that I think I would sign up for my own Patreon. I'm really working really hard to make.
Who says that? Like, what?
Hold on. No. To make a Patreon that I actually think would be worth signing up for, and that if someone else was doing it and putting in the work to do it and bring a community together, like I enjoy Pokemon enough that I would sign up for that too. And so where that's coming from is like, if you're on my Patreon, I'm not promising you're going to make any more money, that we're going to be telling you like specific cards to buy. It's not going to be like a signal calling. What it really is it's a place where I'm going to be going to do deep dives in analytics if you're really interested in like numbers. And we're going to be doing discussions with like lots of people over Zoom, where you're going to be able to network and meet other people and that sort of thing. Awesome. And so if that's something you're interested, I would really appreciate your support, in helping me grow that. I'm trying to get it, as big as I can. I never want to raise the price. The business model I would love to have is just have like a lot of people, and I'd even love to lower the price, honestly, if I could, if there were enough people. So if that's something you're interested in, give it a check. And I really, appreciate you supporting me and like my life goals and what that can help me do in my life. So, that's the thing I've got going on. And then I have, the Pokenomics YouTube channel, obviously, and Pokenomics at Instagram. How about you, Mason? What do you got?
So head on over to patreon.com and search for Pokenomics and be a part of that ever-growing community to fund Jake's wonderful cardboard museum that he wants to build.
Yeah, and if it's worth $10 to you a month.
And who knows, I might stop by and share my little nuggets of wisdom out, and part of that.
Eventually I want to do it. I want to do it like a convention, where it's like an online like Pokemon convention.
You got lofty goals.
Yeah,
Jake. You got a lot going on.
I want to bring together the experts around the world and I want to not just have it be Pokemon eventually, but that's a long-term goal. Unfortunately, most of the people who watch me just want to hear me talk about Pokemon, even though I have a lot of other stuff that I'd love to be sharing, and information and knowledge I think would be more useful for you from a financial perspective. But I'm just so passionate about collecting and like this sort of stuff, and I would just love to like build, and I love building and projects. So yeah, I'll stop. Self-promotion, man. Hopefully I've gotten better at it, but it is rough.
No, that's awesome, dude. Like I would love to see something like that, some type of museum and right, like, James actually said it well before. He's like, everybody that you watch, like, we all have, there's no hiding it. Like we all have some kind of agenda, right? Like there's other goals that we have beyond just making free content for people to consume. Like we all have our own personal goals, and we're utilizing platforms like YouTube to help propel those other goals and those other ventures that we have. And that's just the hallmark of an entrepreneur, right? Of somebody that's just trying to build up their various ventures. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. And in fact, I think that transparency and people who support you, who support Mason, all these different things, they understand that, right? And they want to support these endeavors because it's cool to them, because ultimately they get to share in that passion and perhaps even in person get to share in that experience that they've helped you to create. So I think that's great.
Yeah, definitely. As far as me, Cardinal Gaming is my business. CardinalGaming.com. All of the wonderful Pokemon-y things and Pokemon-y, that's not a word. Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Card Fight Vanguard. We just did a case opening of that on my channel just tonight, so that was cool. Yeah, if you don't have an LGS, or even if you do, and just want to buy stuff from me, cool. Go to CardinalGaming.com. That's it. That's all the shill I want to do. But I'll still be here as long as people are watching stuff. Be cranking out content. There's always something to talk about. Rambling. So yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Well, and one of these days, I hope to actually make it out and actually go to your store in person, Mason. To actually make it out.
That'd be awesome.
Louisville.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people just like, hey, I was driving through to Alabama, and yeah, I just stopped by to see you. I was like, that is awesome. Mm-hmm. I would not do that, but I appreciate that you guys went through the effort and actually do want to just stop by and say hi. It means a lot. So thank you to all of you.
I'm really looking forward to like Collecticons. And that one is going to come to like the Northeast, and I'm definitely going to go to that. But yeah, hopefully, like, yeah, I want to meet. There's so many people like that I'd love to meet, and some of the closest friends I've made were just like early people who watch my channel, who I off stream talk to them for like 3 hours, sometimes 5 hours, just about one-on-one, just about, because we're so passionate about this stuff. So
yeah, that was me and you like the other night. Yes.
Want me a shout out. He's one of those dudes. So there's so many guys who just love this stuff the same way as us. And so meeting people in person and like going on hunts together, like at a Collecticon, looking at stuff, talking about cards, like it'd be such a blast. So hoping to do that soon, opening some packs with people, all that sort of stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Again, big thank you to both of you, Mason and Jake, for joining us here today. Big shout out to everybody out there that stuck with us throughout this whole chat, everybody in the live chat, and everybody watching or listening. We'll be right back here again next month, guys, so don't miss it. We'll see you next time right here on the Pokemon Masterclass. Take care, everybody.